My boss's nephew said, "You're done," without knowing I controlled their biggest client. The fluorescent lights above my desk had been flickering for 3 weeks, but nobody bothered to fix them. Just like nobody bothered to notice that I'd been working 10-hour days to save the Morrison account, or that I'd quietly resolved the budget crisis that could have cost us $500,000. But that Friday afternoon, as I sat hunched over my computer screen, triple-checking the quarterly report numbers for the 3rd time, I didn't know that my 8 years of invisible dedication were about to come to an abrupt end. The office had that familiar Friday energy, people already mentally checked out, planning their weekend escapes. I was deep in concentration when I heard the heavy footsteps. Marcus Thornfield, my boss's nephew, was storming across the office floor like he owned the place, which technically he kind of did. At 24, Marcus had everything handed to him on a silver platter. Harvard MBA, a corner office he didn't deserve, and the kind of confidence that only comes from never having to prove yourself. His designer suit probably cost more than I made in a month, and his perfectly styled hair never seemed to move, even when he was animated, which he was now. "Sarah, we need to talk," he announced, loud enough for half the office to hear. I looked up from my screen, already sensing trouble. "The Morrison projections you submitted, they're wrong." I blinked, glancing at my monitor where the spreadsheet was still open. "Actually, Marcus, I double-checked those numbers with accounting this morning. The Q3 projection is accurate based on their current spending patterns and—" "Don't interrupt me," he snapped, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet office. My coworkers' conversations died mid-sentence. "I ran my own analysis, and your numbers are inflated by at least 15%. This kind of sloppy work could cost us the account." My stomach dropped, but I kept my voice steady. "I understand your concern, but I can show you exactly how I calculated." I said, "Don't interrupt me." His face was flushing red now, and I could see several people pretending to work while obviously listening. "This is exactly the problem with you, Sarah. You've been coasting here for years, thinking you can just phone it in because nobody's watching." The accusation hit like a slap. Coasting? I'd given this company 8 years of my life. I'd missed family dinners, skipped vacations, and worked through weekends. I'd saved more accounts than anyone in this office, but because I didn't play around or take credit loudly, my contributions were invisible. I pulled up the detailed breakdown on my screen and turned the monitor toward him. "Marcus, if you look at this analysis, you'll see that the Morrison account has actually increased their software licensing by 30% since last quarter. These numbers reflect their actual usage data from—" "Are you calling me wrong?" His voice rose another notch, and now the entire department was watching. "In front of everyone?" "I'm just showing you the data," I said quietly, my hands trembling slightly as I scrolled through the spreadsheet. "The numbers come directly from Morrison's usage reports. I can email you the source files if you'd like to verify." "That's enough." Marcus leaned over my desk, his cologne overwhelming and his voice dropping to a menacing whisper that somehow carried further than his shouting. "You know what, Sarah? I'm done with your attitude. You're done here." The words hung in the air like smoke. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline, waiting for someone to step in, waiting for anything that would make this make sense. But Marcus just straightened his tie and looked around the office with satisfaction, as if he'd just solved a major problem. "You're firing me?" I managed to whisper. "Pack your things. Security will escort you out." No meeting. No HR consultation. No discussion with his uncle, who was technically my boss. Just a 24-year-old with too much power and a bruised ego making a decision that would change my life. The office was tomb quiet. Jennifer from marketing was staring at her keyboard so hard I thought she might burn a hole through it. Tom from IT had suddenly become fascinated with his coffee mug. Even the copy machine seemed to have stopped humming. I sat there for a moment, my mind blank. 8 years. 8 years of early mornings and late nights, of fixing other people's mistakes and letting them take the credit, of being the reliable one, the steady one, the one who kept things running smoothly in the background. And it was ending because I dared to correct a privileged kid who didn't know the difference between revenue and profit. Slowly, robotically, I began pulling personal items from my desk drawers. A coffee mug my sister had given me for my birthday. a small succulent plant that had somehow survived the office's fluorescent wasteland, a framed photo of my parents from their anniversary dinner last year. Such small things to represent 8 years of my life. Marcus had already walked away, probably to brag about his decisive leadership to whoever would listen. But as I wrapped my plant in tissues and slipped it into my purse, one thought kept circling in my mind, growing stronger with each second. Marcus had no idea what he'd just done. He didn't know that I was the reason Morrison stayed with us when Apex Solutions offered them a better deal last year. He didn't know that I'd personally prevented 3 major client defections in the past 18 months by solving problems before they became crises. And most importantly, he had absolutely no clue that their biggest client, the account that brought in 40% of the company's revenue, trusted me more than they trusted anyone else in this building. As I walked toward the elevator with my cardboard box of belongings, I caught sight of Marcus through the glass walls of the conference room. He was already on his phone, probably spinning the story to make himself look like a hero who'd cleaned house. His gestures were animated, confident, victorious. If only he knew that the foundation of his uncle's company was about to crumble, and I was the only one who could stop it. But I wasn't going to. The secret that would destroy Marcus began 12 years ago in a cramped dorm room at State University, where my roommate Naomi Chin sat cross-legged on her bed, furiously typing code while I studied for my marketing exam. Even then, she had this intense focus that made the air around her crackle with possibility. While other students were out partying, Naomi was building her first app, a simple task manager that she was convinced would change everything. "You're crazy," I told her that night, looking up from my textbook. "Nobody's going to pay for an app that organizes their grocery lists." She grinned at me, her fingers never stopping their dance across the keyboard. "Just wait, Sarah. Just wait." But our friendship went deeper than college ambitions. Naomi and I had been inseparable since middle school, when we bonded over being the only 2 kids in our class who actually enjoyed math. We'd spent countless sleepovers braiding each other's hair and dreaming about our futures. She wanted to build a tech empire. I wanted to run marketing campaigns that actually mattered. We were each other's biggest cheerleaders and harshest critics. When graduation came, we promised to stay in touch, but life pulled us in different directions. I landed an entry-level position at Thornfield and Associates, and Naomi moved to Silicon Valley to chase her startup dreams. For 2 years, we exchanged birthday cards and the occasional email, but slowly, inevitably, we drifted apart. Then, one rainy Tuesday morning 3 years into my career at Thornfield, my phone rang. "Sarah?" The voice was familiar but strained. "It's Naomi. I need help." She was calling from a coffee shop in downtown Seattle, having moved her failing startup there for cheaper rent. Her app, now evolved into a sophisticated project management platform called Streamline Sync, was hemorrhaging money. She had 3 months of runway left, 2 burned-out developers, and a client base of exactly 0 paying customers. "The product is solid," she'd insisted during our 2-hour phone call. "I know it is. But I can't get anyone to take a chance on an unknown company. Every big corporation wants to see established client relationships before they'll even consider a meeting." That's when the idea hit me. Thornfield and Associates specialized in helping mid-sized companies optimize their operations. We'd been looking for a project management solution for months, cycling through expensive enterprise software that never quite fit our needs. "What if I could get you a meeting with my boss?" I'd asked. The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. "Then, Sarah, you would do that for me?" I pitched Streamline Sync to Mr. Thornfield as a cost-effective alternative to the bloated enterprise solutions we'd been testing. I prepared a detailed comparison report, highlighting how Naomi's platform could save us 30% on licensing fees while providing better customization options. I even arranged a demo where Naomi, wearing her only professional blazer, walked our leadership team through the software's capabilities. But here's the thing I never told anyone at work. I coached Naomi for hours before that presentation. I knew exactly what Thornfield's pain points were, what buzzwords would resonate with the decision-makers, and which features to emphasize. I even helped her adjust her pricing strategy to make the deal irresistible. The contract was signed within 2 weeks. Suddenly, Naomi had her first major client and the credibility to approach other companies. Within 6 months, Streamline Sync had 15 corporate clients. Within a year, she'd raised her series of funding round. To protect both of us, I never revealed our friendship to my colleagues. When I got married and changed my name from Sarah Chin Morrison to Sarah Morrison, it became even easier to maintain the professional facade. To everyone at Thornfield, I was just exceptionally good at managing the Streamline Sync account. To Naomi's investors and employees, I was the professional, reliable contact at their most important client. But behind the scenes, we operated like the team we'd always been. When Streamline Sync faced technical challenges, I'd give Naomi advance warning about what our IT department would be looking for in updates. When Thornfield considered switching platforms, I'd make sure Naomi knew exactly what improvements she needed to make to keep our business. When other Thornfield clients expressed interest in project management software, I'd quietly facilitate introductions. Over the past 5 years, I'd watched Naomi's company grow from a failing startup to a multi-million-dollar business with over 200 corporate clients. But Thornfield and Associates remained her anchor client, the steady, reliable contract that provided 20% of her revenue and served as a reference for every new deal. The beautiful irony was that everyone at Thornfield thought I was just really good at my job. They had no idea that the company's biggest success story, their longest-running, most profitable client relationship, existed because of a friendship that started with 2 teenage girls braiding each other's hair and dreaming about changing the world. Marcus certainly didn't know. In his mind, I was just some middle-aged paper pusher who'd gotten lucky with one account. He had no clue that Naomi Chun, CEO of Streamline Sync and one of the rising stars in Seattle's tech scene, would walk through fire for me. And he was about to find out exactly what that loyalty was worth. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marcus's smug face, heard his condescending voice echoing in my head. "You're done here." The words played on repeat like a broken record, each repetition stoking the fire of humiliation that burned in my chest. Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzling, matching my mood perfectly. I was still in my pajamas at 9 a.m., staring at a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago, when my phone started buzzing on the kitchen counter. The display showed a number I recognized instantly, even though it wasn't in my contacts: Naomi's direct line at Streamline Sync. My heart skipped. In 5 years of managing their account, Naomi had never called me on a weekend. Never called my personal number at all, actually. We kept our professional and personal relationships carefully separated, communicating through official channels during business hours. This call breaking that pattern sent alarm bells ringing in my head. I answered on the 4th ring, trying to sound casual despite the anxiety clawing at my throat. "Hello, Sarah." No greeting, no pleasantries. Naomi's voice was low and sharp, carrying that particular edge I remembered from college when she was about to tear apart someone's poorly reasoned argument. I heard what happened. My blood ran cold. How could she possibly know already? I hadn't told anyone, hadn't even processed it myself yet. "Naomi, I don't." The word cut through my attempted response like a blade. "Just tell me it's not true. Tell me that Marcus Thornfield didn't fire you yesterday afternoon in front of half your department for doing your job correctly." I sank into my kitchen chair, my legs suddenly unable to support me. "How did you?" "Jennifer Martinez from your marketing department." Naomi's voice was getting quieter, which I knew from experience meant she was getting angrier. "She's dating my VP of sales." Apparently, she was so disturbed by what she witnessed that she called him last night, crying about the injustice of it all. Of course, Jennifer had looked mortified during the whole scene, but I never imagined she'd reach out to anyone about it. The tech world was smaller than people realized. Everyone was connected through someone. "So it's true," Naomi continued, and I could hear her moving around, probably pacing in that aggressive way she did when she was furious. "That entitled little prick actually fired you for correcting his math." "Naomi, listen." "No, you listen." Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but it carried more menace than any shout. "Do you remember what you told me when I wanted to give up on Streamline Sync? When I was ready to shut everything down and go get a regular job? I did remember. It was during one of our late-night phone calls, when her second round of funding had fallen through and she was drowning in debt. I told you that you were stronger than you knew. You told me that I was stronger than I knew and that I should never let anyone make me forget my worth. I could hear the emotion creeping into her voice now. You told me that the people who didn't see my value didn't deserve to benefit from it. My throat tightened. I had said those things during one of the darkest periods of her entrepreneurial journey. But I never imagined she'd throw them back at me like this. Sarah, you saved my company. Not just with that first contract, though that was everything, but with 5 years of guidance, support, and friendship disguised as professional consultation. You've been my silent partner in ways that no one at Thornfield could ever understand. It wasn't like that. I protested weakly. I was just doing my job. Bullshit. The profanity was sharp and final. You were doing far more than your job, and we both know it. You were protecting my company like it was your own because, in a way, it was... And now some trust fund baby who's never earned anything in his life thinks he can discard you like yesterday's trash. I was crying now, tears I'd been holding back since yesterday finally breaking free. Not just from the hurt of being fired, but from having someone acknowledge what I'd really been doing all these years. I'm ending the contract, Sarah. Today. The words hit me like a physical blow. Naomi, no. You can't do that. Your company needs... My company needs me to have integrity, she cut me off. Streamline Sync has 47 corporate clients now. Thornfield represents 20% of our revenue. Yes, but we're not the desperate startup we were 5 years ago. I can survive losing them. But the financial impact will be significant, but not fatal. You know what would be fatal? Continuing to do business with people who treat my friends, my partners, like garbage. Her voice hardened with resolve. If you're not there, I'm not there. It's that simple. The line went quiet except for both of us breathing. I could picture her in her corner office, probably standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Seattle's skyline, her jaw set in that determined way that meant no force on earth could change her mind. Naomi, I whispered, they'll be ruined. I know, she said softly. That's the point. By Monday morning at 10:47 a.m., my phone started buzzing with the first panicked call. I was in my kitchen, still in my robe, mindlessly scrolling through job listings when Thornfield and Associates flashed across my screen. I let it go to voicemail. The second call came 12 minutes later, then a third. By noon, my phone had become a relentless symphony of buzzing, chiming, and ringing. Each ignored call seemed to multiply into 2 more, like some kind of corporate hydra of desperation. I finally listened to the first voicemail around 1 p.m., if only to stop the red notification badge from taunting me. Sarah, this is Janet from HR. Her usually composed voice was strained, almost breathless. There seems to be some kind of misunderstanding about your employment status. Could you please call me back as soon as possible? It's quite urgent. Misunderstanding.
Right.
The next message was from Tom Bradley, the head of our IT department, a man who'd never spoken to me directly in 8 years unless his computer was broken. Sarah, hi, this is Tom. Listen, I'm getting some concerning reports about the Streamline Sync account, and I really need to speak with you. Could you call me back today? Thanks. But it was the third voicemail that made me sit up and pay attention. The voice was one I'd only heard in company meetings and holiday parties. Deep, authoritative, with just a hint of the southern accent that Mr. Thornfield had never quite shaken despite 40 years in Seattle. Sarah, this is Robert Thornfield. I believe there's been a serious miscommunication regarding your position here at the company. I need to speak with you immediately. Please call my direct line as soon as you receive this message. Robert Thornfield, the big boss himself. In 8 years, he'd never called me directly about anything. I was 3 levels below him in the corporate hierarchy, a worker bee who occasionally got a nod of acknowledgement at company picnics. And now he was personally calling my cell phone, asking me to contact his direct line. I poured myself a glass of wine despite it being barely past lunchtime and settled in to watch the show unfold. My friend Lisa from accounting texted me around 2 p.m. Girl, what did you do? The executives are losing their minds up there. Marcus looks like he's about to throw up. 20 minutes later, another text. Emergency board meeting called. I've never seen Mr. Thornfield this angry. His face is literally purple. Then, at 3:15 p.m., the call that confirmed everything was falling apart exactly as Naomi had promised. My phone rang, and this time the caller ID showed a name that made my heart race. Marcus Thornfield. I almost didn't answer. Part of me wanted to let him stew in whatever mess he'd created for himself. But curiosity won out, and I swiped to accept the call. Sarah. His voice was completely different from Friday's arrogant bark. Now he sounded hollow, desperate, like a man standing on the edge of a cliff. Thank God you answered. Marcus. I kept my tone neutral, professional. What can I do for you? There's been a mistake. A huge mistake. I could hear him breathing heavily, probably pacing around his office. About Friday, I mean. I was having a bad day and I overreacted and... You fired me, I said simply. It wasn't. I didn't mean... Look, can we meet? Today? I think we can work this out. The desperation in his voice was intoxicating. This was the same man who'd humiliated me in front of my colleagues, who dismissed 8 years of dedicated work with a casual wave of his hand. Now he was practically begging. I'm not sure what there is to work out, Marcus. You were very clear on Friday that I was done. But the Streamline Sync account... He stopped himself, probably realizing he was about to reveal just how catastrophic his decision had been. What about it? A long pause. They're threatening to terminate their contract. Today. They say they have concerns about account management consistency. I almost laughed. Trust Naomi to use corporate speak to deliver a death blow. That sounds concerning. Sarah, please. I know we had a disagreement, but this is bigger than that now. The whole company is at risk. That account represents 40% of our annual revenue. If we lose them... He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. I'd seen the books. Losing Streamline Sync wouldn't just hurt Thornfield and Associates. It would be devastating. Layoffs, budget cuts, possibly even bankruptcy if they couldn't quickly replace that revenue stream. Have you tried talking to them directly? I asked, still maintaining my innocent tone. I've been calling Naomi Chin all morning. She won't take my calls. Her assistant says she's unavailable, but she CCNG me on emails to other vendors. Sarah, I think she's already shopping for a replacement. She was. I knew because she texted me a photo of her laptop screen showing a calendar full of demos with other project management companies. The message had simply read, giving them 24 hours to make this right. After that, we're gone. That's unfortunate, I said. Sarah, I'm asking you to come back. Please. We can discuss a promotion, a raise, whatever you want. Just... We need you to fix this. Whatever I want. The man who'd treated me like disposable trash 3 days ago was now offering me whatever I wanted. The irony was so perfect it was almost poetic. I'll think about it, I said, and hung up before he could respond. My phone immediately started ringing again. This time it was Mr. Thornfield himself. I smiled and declined the call. Let them panic a little longer. Tuesday morning brought a text that changed everything. Coffee? 10 a.m. at our old spot. We need to talk. N. Our old spot was Grind Coffee on Pine Street, a tiny cafe tucked between a vintage bookstore and a record shop where Naomi and I used to meet during her early startup days. We hadn't been there together in years, but I knew exactly which corner table she meant. The one by the window where we'd spent countless hours plotting her company's future over overpriced lattes. She was already waiting when I arrived, looking every inch the successful CEO in her tailored black blazer and designer jeans. But when she stood to hug me, I caught the familiar glint in her eyes that took me back to our college days, the look she got when she was about to propose something either brilliant or completely insane. You look good for someone whose world just exploded, she said, gesturing for me to sit. I feel surprisingly zen about it all, I admitted, settling into the worn leather chair across from her. Though I have to ask, how bad is the damage over there? Naomi's smile was sharp as a blade. Let's just say that Robert Thornfield personally called me 6 times yesterday. 6 times, Sarah. The man who couldn't be bothered to remember my name at the last quarterly review is now leaving me voicemails that sound like he's about to cry. I couldn't help but laugh. And you're enjoying this? Immensely. She leaned forward, her expression growing serious. But I didn't ask you here to gloat. Well, not entirely. She paused, studying my face. I have an offer for you. Something in her tone made my pulse quicken. What kind of offer? The kind that makes what happened at Thornfield irrelevant. She pulled out her tablet and slid it across the table. On the screen was a detailed organizational chart for Streamline Sync, with a new box highlighted in yellow at the top level, right below her own position as CEO. Chief Strategy Officer. I read aloud, my voice barely above a whisper. Triple your current salary. Full benefits. Equity package that'll make you a multimillionaire when we go public next year. Her voice was calm, but I could see the excitement building behind her eyes. You'd be my right hand, Sarah. We'd run this thing together, the way we always should have. I stared at the chart, my mind reeling. Chief Strategy Officer. It was a position that existed in my wildest dreams, the kind of role I'd fantasized about during those long, thankless nights at Thornfield when I was fixing everyone else's mistakes. You're serious. Dead serious. Think about it, you already know our business inside and out. You understand our challenges, our opportunities, our client base better than anyone except me. And you've been thinking strategically about our growth for years, even if it was unofficial. She was right. During our carefully disguised professional relationship, I'd been more than just an account manager. I'd been an advisor, a sounding board, a strategic partner. Every major decision Streamline Sync had made in the past 5 years had been influenced, in some way, by our conversations. Plus, Naomi continued, you'd be getting in at exactly the right time. We're about to announce our Series C funding round. $50 million, led by Andreessen Horowitz. We're expanding into Europe, launching 3 new product lines, and planning our IPO for next summer. $50 million. IPO. The numbers swirled in my head like lottery jackpot announcements. This wasn't just a job offer, it was a complete life transformation. I could start immediately, she added. Today, even. Walk away from Thornfield, let them figure out their own mess, and never look back. The offer was intoxicating. No more fluorescent lights and lukewarm coffee. No more watching incompetent managers take credit for my work. No more Marcus Thornfield, or anyone like him ever again. Just the chance to build something meaningful alongside my oldest friend. But as I sat there, staring at the organizational chart that could be my future, another image kept intruding. Marcus's panicked voice on the phone yesterday. The desperation of a man who'd finally realized the magnitude of his mistake. The entire company teetering on the brink of collapse because of one arrogant decision. It's an incredible offer, I said slowly. More than I ever imagined possible. But Naomi's eyebrows rose slightly. I looked up from the tablet, meeting her eyes. But there's another part of me that wants to walk back into that office. Not as Sarah Morrison, the overlooked account manager they could discard on a whim, but as the woman who holds their entire future in her hands. Naomi leaned back in her chair, a knowing smile spreading across her face. You want to make them grovel. I want them to understand what they almost threw away. I want Marcus to look me in the eye and admit he was wrong. I want every person in that office who pretended not to see what happened on Friday to watch me walk back in with all the power. Revenge, she said simply. Justice, I corrected. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the decision hanging between us. Through the cafe window, I could see people hurrying past on their way to jobs where they were probably undervalued, overlooked, dismissed. How many of them would go for the opportunity one was holding in my hands? But revenge had its own appeal. The chance to rewrite the narrative, to transform from victim to victor in the eyes of everyone who'd witnessed my humiliation. You know, Naomi said finally, those 2 options aren't mutually exclusive. I looked at her curiously. Get your justice first, she said, her smile returning. Make them understand exactly what they lost. Make Marcus grovel until his knees are raw. And then, when you're ready, when you've had your fill of watching them squirm, She gestured toward the tablet. Come build an empire with me. Wednesday morning, I stood in front of my closet for 20 minutes, choosing my armor. Not the bland business casual I'd worn for 8 years of invisibility, but the navy blue power suit I'd bought for my sister's wedding and never had the courage to wear to work. The one that made me feel like I could conquer the world. I paired it with my mother's pearl earrings and the red lipstick I'd been saving for special occasions. Today felt special enough. At exactly 10 a.m., I walked through the glass doors of Thornfield and Associates with Naomi at my side. She'd insisted on coming. For moral support, she'd said, though I suspected she wanted a front row seat to the show. The receptionist's eyes widened when she saw me. Sarah, we weren't expecting. Is Mr. Thornfield available? I asked, my voice steady and professional. She fumbled with her phone, clearly flustered. Yes, of course, right away. Within 30 seconds, Robert Thornfield himself appeared in the lobby, moving faster than I'd ever seen him move. His usually immaculate appearance was disheveled, wrinkled shirt, crooked tie, the kind of 5 o'clock shadow that suggested he'd been sleeping in his office. Sarah, thank God. His relief was palpable, embarrassing in its intensity. And Miss Chun, what an honor. Please come up to my office immediately. The elevator ride was silent but electric. I could feel the tension radiating from Mr. Thornfield, could practically hear his heart pounding. Naomi stood beside me like a serene warrior queen, her presence adding weight to every second. His corner office overlooked the Seattle skyline, a view I'd admired from the hallway but never experienced from this side of the glass. He gestured toward the leather chairs facing his massive mahogany desk, but I remained standing. Thank you for coming, he began, his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles were white. I want to start by saying that what happened on Friday was completely unacceptable. Marcus acted without authority, without consultation, and without understanding the full situation. I said nothing, letting the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. I've spent the last 3 days trying to understand how this happened, he continued, desperation creeping into his voice. How we came so close to losing our most valuable client relationship because of one person's poor judgment. Your nephew's poor judgment, I corrected quietly. He flinched. Yes. Marcus's poor judgment, which is why I'm prepared to offer you whatever it takes to make this right. Promotion to senior account director, 30% salary increase, corner office, whatever you need. I glanced at Naomi, who was watching the proceedings with undisguised fascination. Her slight nod reminded me that I held all the cards. Mr. Thornfield, I said, finally moving to stand directly in front of his desk. I appreciate the offer, but I think you're misunderstanding the situation. His brow furrowed. I'm sorry. This isn't a negotiation about my return. This is about whether Streamline Sync continues doing business with Thornfield and Associates at all. The color drained from his face. Sarah, please, I'm sure we can work something out that. Marcus fired me for doing my job correctly. I continued, my voice growing stronger with each word. He humiliated me in front of my colleagues because his ego couldn't handle being wrong about a simple calculation. And now you want to fix this with a corner office and a raise? What do you want? He whispered. I looked him directly in the eyes. This man who'd barely acknowledged my existence for 8 years, who was now hanging on my every word. I want Marcus gone. The silence that followed was deafening. Through the glass walls of his office, I could see people pretending to work while obviously straining to witness this conversation. Word had clearly spread that the Streamline Sync crisis was being resolved in real time. Gone. Mr. Thornfield repeated weakly. Resigned. Today. I won't work for a company that employs someone who treats people the way he treated me. But he's family. Then he can find work with another family business. I stepped closer to his desk. Those are my terms. Non-negotiable. Mr. Thornfield looked like he was about to be sick. Marcus wasn't just his nephew. He was being groomed to eventually take over the company. Firing him would create a family crisis that would ripple through every holiday dinner and family gathering for years to come. But losing Streamline Sync would destroy the business entirely. And my position? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Vice President of Client Strategy, he said automatically. Full authority over all major accounts. Equity stake in the company. Whatever title and compensation package you want. I pretended to consider this, letting him sweat for another moment. Then I turned to Naomi. Is that acceptable to you, Miss Chen? Naomi smiled, slow and satisfied. If Sarah's happy, Streamline Sync is happy. By 3 p.m., Marcus had cleaned out his office and left the building. His resignation letter, hastily drafted by HR, cited personal reasons for his departure, but everyone knew the truth. Word spread through the office like wildfire. Sarah Morrison, the quiet account manager they'd all overlooked, had just forced out the boss's nephew and emerged as the company's new vice president. When I walked back to my old desk to collect my few remaining personal items, the entire floor fell silent. Jennifer from marketing gave me a small, approving nod. Tom from IT actually smiled and said, "Congratulations, Ms. Morrison." As I packed my succulent plant, which had somehow survived my 3-day absence, I felt a profound sense of completion. Not just revenge, but transformation. I wasn't the same woman who'd been humiliated on Friday afternoon. I was someone who understood her own power, who knew her worth, and who would never again let anyone make her forget it. Naomi appeared at my shoulder. "So," she said quietly, "ready to build that empire?" I looked around the office, my office now, where people were looking at me with a mixture of respect and awe that I'd never experienced before. "Give me 6 months," I told her. "Let me show them what they almost lost. Then we'll change the world together."
She grinned.
"I'll be waiting." And for the first time in 8 years, I knew I was exactly where I belonged.